Module 1, Recovery and Grief. Grief is a very important part of the process when a relationship has ended, and so you need to work through these emotions in order to move on fully to the next stage. Here, initially, we will intellectually explore the stages of the grief process so that you become emotionally aware of grief, and thereby enabling you to do the grieving that you've been perhaps afraid to embrace or experience. We will then work through this challenging process in our one-to-one sessions. This is going to be quite a long section, and so I've put in an all-important break for you to take time out and create time for reflection. It would be good for you to have a journal to hand and open, and in case you wish to write a few notes. We're now working with one of the most difficult and emotionally draining aspects of the rebuilding process. Whenever there is a loss of something important in our lives, we suffer the natural process of grief. For death, there is a set ritual with a funeral, coffin, and the acceptance that grieving is important. In ending a relationship, there are no prescribed rituals other than perhaps a court hearing, the packing up of items in the home, and informing friends and family. And so grief is often not acknowledged or accepted as the death of a relationship. Many forms of loss happen when a relationship ends, which many people grieve over. There is the loss of a future, the sharing of a future as a couple, of love, of partner and lover, and the social status of being a couple. And then there is the loss of role, both personally and within society, and the status as a couple, and all that that communicates both to us and those around us. So for many people, the loss of the relationship is as important perhaps as the loss of the partner. Then there is the loss of the future plans, goals, careers, and home together. It's very common when we end a relationship to look at past pain. I've found that many people have not grieved the loss of events in the past, such as the death of a loved one, and connecting with this loss now in our life often powerfully connects us with almost re-experiencing that pain from the past. And of course, this can intensify the current grieving process. Essentially, for those who carried such unresolved loss from their past, their current grief is especially painful and difficult. But it's not just about past loss. If we have a history of unfulfilled emotional needs, such as one man who began working with me on the seminar, and unhappiness he'd experienced during his lonely childhood, then there is the chance to break free of some of those emotional connections. Many people are forced to move away from the house they live together with their partner, and single parents have to grieve the loss of children when they are not the parent who is caring for them. And, naturally, the children must also grieve the loss of the house, a parent, and a family. Essentially, for most people, grief has a push-pull effect. When you are hurt, you have a massive empty feeling, and you expect friends to be able to help you fill it. You talk to your friends and get closer to them, and yet you still have this empty feeling, like a big wound, and therefore you feel so vulnerable to being hurt again. As a result, when people get too close, yes, you tend to push them away in order to prevent further emotional pain. Naturally, this creates quite a series of mixed messages for your friends. With grief, we feel emotionally drained, and sleep problems are often common, either falling asleep at night if we don't use drugs or alcohol, or waking up early in the morning, and though tired, unable to get back to sleep. This is a major concern at the time when we need to have as much rest as possible, both mentally as well as physically. Also, the content of our dreams, or the fact that we on waking return to the reality of the loss, makes this grieving process very, very hard work. It's quite common, if challenging, to feel continuously tired until we've finished this part of the process of grieving. Eating is a common problem. It's common to feel a tightness in the throat and find swallowing difficult. Sometimes the mouth feels dry and you may not have much of an appetite, resulting in occasions when you feel like you have to force yourself to eat. Rapid mood changes are typical during the grieving stage, that in one moment you feel forgetful or distracted, and then suddenly emotions rise, only to find that almost a second later the pain is once again with you. The whole sudden mood swing may have been triggered by a conversation from a friend showing an act of kindness to you. And also, friends can feel confused and sad, not knowing what they've done to upset you. There may be a period when you sense a loss of reality, of being in a daze or in an unreal world. You observe the world as though watching a film, remote and detached from the events happening around you. You may also experience a period of lack of contact in regard to your emotions, and this is based on the fact that you're afraid to trust your feelings because of your inability to control them. The emotional pain is so great that you have to protect yourself from feeling too much by effectively creating times of deadening your emotions. At these times, it's common to have a sense of emotional numbness. Many people report to me how they experience a lot of fantasizing during this grieving phase. Fantasizing about seeing their former partner, or that they hear their voice. A sense that a part of their body is missing, as though their heart were removed, which symbolizes the loss of the other person. For many, this part of the process may be frightening if you do not recognize that it is a natural and normal part of the grieving process. Loneliness, lack of concentration, weakness, and a feeling of helplessness, depression, or as I prefer to term it, a healthy reaction of intense sadness, guilt, lack of sexual interest, and perhaps feelings of impotence or frigidity may accompany the grieving process. Self-criticism and a sense to continually question your mistakes and almost relive your past, as though this is happening almost on a daily basis at this part of the journey. Anger is a part of grief resulting from powerful feelings in regard to the unfairness of both the recent loss as well as life in general. Anger directed towards your former partner may approach rage in its intensity, but I will look in more detail about this part of the process in our next online session. Suicidal feelings are common, with approximately 3/4 of people attending seminars reporting such thoughts and feelings. Research indicates a much higher than normal rate of suicidal thoughts and the associated feelings, and this can appear overwhelming at such a time. Such apparently uncontrollable mood swings, loss of reality, fantasies, intense sadness, and suicidal feelings often lead us to question, am I going crazy? And for many this is a difficult fear to discuss with people. As you can guess, holding such a fear simply makes it even more isolated and challenging, but rest assured that this is a natural, normal feeling which everyone experiences rather than being a permanent psychological process. Essentially, you are experiencing normal and healthy grief reactions. So these grief symptoms may be handled by acknowledging them, accepting that they indicate grief work to be done, and allowing, with the right support, to feel the pain without the denial. Crying, shouting, and writhing are non-destructive actions to express your grief, and so make a decision to manage the grief by deciding on an appropriate time and place to do such grief work. When you are working, this is naturally not the time for you to actually express your grief, so you need to contain it, put it to one side, which becomes easier when you have consciously set aside other times to allow your grieving process to unfold. In doing so, your emotions become easier to control. Naturally, we try to protect ourselves during this time, and many people I work with say this part of the rebuilding process is the hardest, as they don't want to experience the pain and crying of grief. Somewhere, deep inside you, you will know when the grief work is complete, and you have worked through the process of letting go, and it means that you cannot experience these feelings again. Time for us to take a break.